Hey, this video is full of spoilers. Consider this your one and only warning. In the Borderlands 2 DLC, Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, there is a moment where the energetic and explosion-obsessed Mr. Targ is assigning tasks to make sure you're prepared to enter the magic forest. He has you shoot some blimps, punch a guy so hard he explodes, and then for his final task, he asks you to blow up the ocean, at which point the players call it quits and he is banished to the stocks for derailing the game. It's a funny moment. For a second the quest objective even changes to match, an obviously ridiculous thing to ask for with no conceivable way to actually make it happen. Well, about a third of the way through the game, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, we once again meet Mr. Targ. This time we need his help to bless our boat to cross the ocean safely. Before that, he takes a second to have a therapy jam where the players at the table work out their problems, which overpowers the spell. A missile silo rises from under the ship and launches a missile into the air. Then more launch in the distance and crash into the middle of the ocean with a gigantic explosion, sending a crashing wave towards you.
Beautiful! New ocean, I'll see you in hell!
He really did it after all. He blew up the ocean. I think this scene is the perfect summation of what Wonderlands is. With just this, you now have a clear understanding of everything Wonderlands is creatively and how I feel about it. It's a funny scene in its absurd way, it's a nice callback to the original DLC, it's highly playful with the fictional premise of the game. It's also symbolically perfect for what this game is. As wide as an ocean and as deep as a puddle. Over the past few months, I've been making videos about the Borderlands series, exploring in depth the strengths and weaknesses of each title, and I started this project with this, Wonderlands, in mind. I wanted to take some time and explore those old titles and what I find so interesting about them before moving on to what seemed to be the most ambitious title Gearbox had made yet. Well, here we are, and to be honest with you, I'm struggling to have any hard opinions about Wonderlands at all. It's fine. I didn't not enjoy my time with it. But the game never grabbed me, never hooked me. It feels like it's missing something. Something that's preventing me from sharing the love that so many people around me have for the game. And that's what I want to use this video to discover. What is Wonderlands missing? Let's start by clarifying something. No matter what else it is, Wonderlands is a Borderlands game through and through. Gameplay-wise, it's almost identical to Borderlands 3 in the same way the pre-sequel was to Borderlands 2. It has several returning characters, including Claptrap, and is even somewhat a loose sequel to the original DLC. I feel like I need to make that clear because I get the sense that Gearbox are trying to put some distance between this game and the rest of the Borderlands series. The lack of Borderlands in the name, for one, but references to Borderlands in the marketing have been quite lacking, and I wonder if they were hoping to attract a new audience with a new fantasy IP. At the very least, they want Wonderlands to be seen as their next flagship title and not just as a Borderlands spin-off. They even included a whole bunch of famous comedy actors, something the franchise has never really done before with the possible exception of Tails. Wonderlands does feel pretty disconnected from the rest of the series, in story anyway. In gameplay terms, it's exactly the same, aside from a few new gimmicks for the game, like spells instead of grenades, and the inclusion of a strange bobblehead open world section. The thing is, I find it really hard to imagine someone who isn't already a Borderlands fan really getting into this game. The inclusion of guns is a massive turn-off for anyone who's a fan of fantasy games, and the Borderlands style of absurdist humour is definitely a niche that not everyone appreciates. I mean, personally, if my DM blew up the ocean, I'd probably be dropping out of that campaign, and not just because I play a pirate. I think this game wants to appeal to a larger audience, but it can't help itself from being Borderlands. Of course that shouldn't matter to me, I am a Borderlands fan. I count the DLC this game is based on as one of the best DLCs in any game of all time. I should love this. So why don't I? Normally I would structure these videos by summarising the story and pausing throughout to do some analysis, but I can't really follow that structure this time. Not because the game doesn't have a story, it does, but because most of that story isn't real, and even if it was, it's absurdly simple. You are the Fate Maker, you have to stop the evil Dragon Lord. More than any other game in the Borderlands series, the story is not the point of Wonderlands. The story is essentially a series of 5 or 6 different adventures stringed together with no real narrative connection between them. And look, I'm not saying that's bad, it's pretty accurate to the source material, which is Dungeons & Dragons. Most campaigns of D&D work exactly like this. The party travels to a place, does some quests, then moves on to the next place, each with a distinct theme to make them memorable. Some are better than others, but overall they don't need to be cohesive, they only need to be fun. The thing is, this disconnected nature of the story doesn't really give you much to grab onto. You're always just passing through. Here's how it goes. You meet a cool NPC, you help them out with a problem they're having, usually involving a boss, then you move on to the next area. You meet Paladin Mike, help him save the town of Brighthoof, then you move on. You meet Torg the Barbarian, help him save the forest, and then you move on. You meet Bones Threewood, the skeletal pirate, help him reunite with his partner, then you move on. You meet the Wastard, help him get his body back, then you move on. All of these could be interesting characters, at the very least they're fun characters, but they all just come and go from the story. Some with an extra side quest later, but some without. The only consistent characters throughout the story are the players. Tina, Valentine, Fret, and you, the newbie. Although for all intensive purposes your character barely counts, they're a blank slate you create yourself. And I think more than anything within the game world, it's the story being told around the table that's letting it down. That D&D structure, go to a place, help a cool character, move on, that's the kind of storytelling that only works in a tabletop setting, because while the characters change, the actors don't. Every NPC you meet is your friend, the DM. Every NPC is a chance for them to do a fun voice, explain some of the cool lore they've come up with, make the characters laugh. These disconnected adventures are connected through the player's shared experience. D&D is also an extremely slow game. One of these adventures could be months of gameplay, an entire arc where the players talk about what's going to happen and come up with little side things along the way. And that long-term investment and friendship building is something that a video game really can't recreate. But it can try. D&D at its core is a collaborative storytelling experience. The DM sets the stage and the players act out their roles. It's not a game you can play alone, and that's a large part of its appeal, I think. D&D is a bonding experience. The original DLC captured this about as well as it could. Our players, Brick, Mordecai, and Lilith, represent different kinds of D&D players. The fan, the newbie, and the skeptic. And those first-time experiences especially are a bonding experience for friends. Their relationship to Tina was that of odd parental figures, and that dynamic was explored using the game as a backdrop. And then there was the even deeper level of the death of Roland and how his death was affecting his old friends, and especially Tina, and how playing the game brought them all closer in his absence. Where the players of the original DLC were important NPCs and former player characters, well-known figures, Fret and Valentine are strangers, not just to us, the players, but to Tina as well. Both of them are already established role players as well, and it's theoretically your character who takes on the role of newbie. Already you can see that the setup for the original DLC is way more dynamic, but I think this game still has potential for interesting things. D&D has introduced me to many people I now consider close friends, and that's a different kind of story you could tell, but the game just doesn't, really. Tina is a stranger to them, but Fret and Valentine already know each other pretty well. They're partners, they have an established dynamic that we can see clearly early on. They're basically Lando and his sassy droid from Solo. Towards the end of the game, there's some indication that Tina is lonely, that she's extending the game to keep Valentine and Fret playing with her. But it's not really resolved, they just decide to keep playing so you can finish up the side content, obviously. And beyond that, it's just like the in-game story. The conflicts at the table are a series of disconnected segments. Valentine and Fret are different kinds of role players. Valentine plays fast and loose with the rules, while Fret prefers to play by the book. They agree to disagree, and move on. Tina tries to introduce an NPC and can't get the player to trust her, eventually ending up with her killing off the NPC and yelling in frustration. They calm her down, they tell her they're having fun, and move on. There's no through line, no emotional arc that carries throughout the game. They're just playing along and having disconnected issues and then resolving them. And these beats aren't even bad. I especially like the segment where Tina couldn't get them to trust her NPC. It's a relatable DM experience. But it's only one segment of 6. It gets brought up, pondered, and then resolved in the course of around 40 minutes. The same goes for all the individual adventures. I liked saving the forest with Torg. I liked going on a pirate adventure with Bones Threewood. I just wish there had been a more cohesive story tying it all together. I think a good way to illustrate the problem is to look at the side content. Along with the usual spattering of side quests in the areas you travel through are entire side locations, all of which have an extreme attention to detail, with the standout for me being Tangledrift, a city lifted into the skies by a magic beanstalk. But once you look at the structure of these side locations, you might start to see a familiarity. In Mount Craw, you help a goblin named Jar free the goblin people from the oppression of a false god. In Tangledrift, you help the fairy Punch Father save the town from a parasite infesting the beanstalk with evil magic. In Crackmast Cove, you help free Phil, a man on trial for the crime of having evil vibes to earn his freedom. In Sunfang Oasis, you help Garrett of Trivia free the ancient evil Serpent Queen from a curse so you can kill her. All of these could be seamlessly put into the main story, and it wouldn't really change anything at all. They're the exact same structure where you help an interesting NPC with a quest through the cool location, and then you move on, and they're all good. I mean, Garrett of Trivia is a really weird parrot of Geralt because he's represented as this posh bragger asshole. 3 words I definitely use to describe Geralt of Rivia, but besides that, they're all really good with an insane amount of production value, almost as if they were supposed to be part of the main story and then they were just kind of arbitrarily sanctioned off to fill out space on the overworld. In fact, side quests across the board have a much higher standard of quality than I'm used to in a Borderlands game. Being shrunk down by a wizard to find out what his reckless apprentices are up to, helping 2 metal bands in a magic battle of the bands which leads somehow to you being possessed by a demon and forced to find him a new host body. That thing they like to do now where they include a side quest which is deeply sincere and doesn't have any jokes in it. And one of the best of the lot, the one where Fret and Valentine obsess over a random blue-hatted NPC and Tina has to hurriedly come up with a story for him. The game suffers a lot from a problem that's been plaguing the series from the beginning, that being that every unimportant NPC looks exactly the same. Even NPCs that really shouldn't, like Garrett of Trivia, but the writing is on point, or at the very least the writing is good at what it's trying to do, which is to make you laugh. I think that this is satisfying what most people want. The game is fun to play, the quests are high quality with some fun laughs and extremely pretty sights, but I can't help but feeling the same thing I felt after playing Borderlands 3, that there's so much potential here that's going untapped. One of the weirdest aspects of the game is the primary antagonist, the Dragon Lord, voiced by Will Arnett. He does a great job with what he's given and he has some of my favourite lines in the game, but the execution of this character is deeply weird. Very early in the game, the Dragon Lord makes it clear that he knows he's the villain of a tabletop RPG, and he can talk to you, the player, without the other characters, including Tina, knowing about it. If that makes no goddamn sense at all to you, then we're on the same page, since I thought this was a D&D game being DM'd by Tina. All of the dialogue in the game is her putting on voices, and there's even a couple of times when she breaks character voice by accident, and yet it's also made pretty clear that the Dragon Lord is correct. He does things that Tina wasn't expecting to happen, somehow, and shows you things that Tina doesn't tell you. His goal as a villain is to destroy this world and rebuild a new one outside of her control, and I have no goddamn clue what to do with any of this. This isn't resolved, at all. You beat him in the final boss fight and Tina and the rest never discover that this character is, conscious and capable of independent thought. It's just something that they threw in there. To make it even weirder, he reveals his origin story. The Dragon Knight, Tina's first and only player character from her introduction to the game. She had him do something evil which flipped his alignment, which put her off being the player and swore only to DM from now on. And that's never resolved either. It's just thrown in there as a random factoid. It seems like it's building up to something, some kind of confrontation between Tina and her abandoned OC, some sort of commentary on how we treat the characters of our imagination, but it never does. At the end of all of it, he's still your villain to fight. He never has a moment of reconciliation with Tina, he just decides not to be evil anymore so he can run the boring endgame horde modes, and it's so frustrating that it fizzles out because I really felt like it was building to something interesting, something about how the characters we create can take on a life of their own, how as D&D players we can become really attached to these purely imaginary people and the strange dynamic that brings with it. But as it is in the game now, he's just a less interesting, more spiky version of Lotso Huggin' Bear. I so want to love this game. The gameplay is excellent, the dialogue is charming, the environmental design is at an all-time high for the series, and maybe even for all games, but there's something missing. And its depth. In all these previous videos, I've spent time exploring the series' iconic musical intros and what they mean for the story. Borderlands is about the hustle. Borderlands 2 is about heroes. The prequel is about villains. Well, Wonderlands doesn't have a musical intro, which is symbolic of the fact that it isn't really about anything. It's just about playing D&D with some friends, and at the end of the day, I'd rather do that with my actual friends. I enjoyed my time with Wonderlands. I think I've come across as very negative in this video, and that's not my intention. I played through the game twice, I had fun with it, but I have no desire to play through it again. I think based on the other Borderlands videos I've made, people will be expecting something longer, an in-depth hour-long critique, and if that's what you were hoping for, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but there's just not that much to talk about. Just like all of those mini adventures, I've done what I needed to do, and now I can move on.
So, ladies and gentlemen, on the wall off to the right of the frame, you see an emblem on a wall. It's like a crest. That crest is for the office of Barriss Offee, and I believe also partially used by Luminar Unduli. Luminar Unduli was Jedi Master, training Barriss Offee. Barriss Offee is the one that bombed the Jedi Temple in the Clone Wars and was sent to prison.